Loktarogar. Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, everyone's favorite work warrior, and it's time for another work mode workout. And today I decided to continue to do pause squats. I realized I'm not trying to hit maxes on squats right now. Getting a stretch reflex doesn't matter. I want to do everything dead stop training. I feel like it's overall a better training stimulus. It's easier to recover from. It allows me to, again, work on tightness, technique, things like that. So I decided to do all pause squats, just like everything's going to be paused. You guys will notice all my lifts other than my arm exercises are pretty much dead stop. Although even the curls technically are, aren't they? So it's going to be all about these pause squats, just like the pause close grip bench press. And everything went good. Like I had been mentioning earlier, and I knew that would happen because I know my body. I'd said, I'd been having a little bit of lower back pain. It's completely gone today. And completely gone. It feels a lot better. No pain in my glute. Everything's feeling good. So Friday's the end of my training week, and I get the weekend off to recover. So everything's good. For those curious, I was 218 on the scale again this morning. Like I drifted back up to almost 220 yesterday, but it was back down to 218. And reaching that on a Friday, because usually I eat a little heavier on my 3 big training days, it should be good. I'm expecting to swoosh again. I'm hoping to be 217 or less by the time we hit Monday. So that's a good thing. That's a good sign. So everything's in order there. Everything's going good. Like I said, happy with these pause squats. Yes, I know they're a little light for me, and I'm just going to build them up from here. I feel like this is a decent weight to be working with for 3 sets of 5 with a nice pause at the bottom, and I'll be able to build up from here. So again, I'll be able to get a little bit of a novel training response because I haven't been doing pause squats again for a while. I'll get a novel training effect and hopefully again stimulate a little bit of adaptation while cutting, so that again we help hold on to leg muscle, and I'm getting a good training stimulus that I can recover from. And that's what a lot of this is going to be about. And when we talk about changing things up, and people talk about stuff like the law of adaptation, you need to remember going to something as simple as a pause movement on an exercise you normally do touch and go, like because you get a stretch reflex on the squat, is a new training stimulus, right? That is a new training stimulus. So when people talk about needing to change things up to again avoid the biological law of adaptation, that will do it. So will changing your grip or your foot stance by an inch. That's a novel training response. Adding a 1-inch deficit on a deadlift it will bypass that. It's a new training response, guys. And people need to remember that when they're looking at this stuff. You don't need dramatic changes for that to happen. Close grip bench press went good. I think maybe I rested too short. The second set I only got 4. The fourth one felt like a grinder, but then I hit 5 on the third set, which means maybe I just didn't get enough break, didn't get my head straight for the second work set. But all in all, these went good. Really felt it a lot in my pecs, though. I noticed that, again, when I got to the end of that second set, I needed a good break because my pecs were kind of throbbing a bit, cramping a little bit. So, again, they're getting worked heavily. And people say silly stuff like, close grip bench press is a tricep exercise. It's silly bodybuilder nonsense. It's like, it's absolutely the pectorals are a primary mover. I'm not saying the triceps aren't also, but realistically, you can build a massive chest with a close grip bench. If you pause at the bottom, you need to think about it. You're doing a longer range of motion version. The chest gets a decent stretch, decent contraction. In fact, arguably the close grip might actually give you a little more contraction at the top, and contraction still under load. People talk about all that stuff like, a squeeze. A squeeze doesn't mean anything without load on it, right? It doesn't mean anything. In this case, though, you've still got significant amount of weight on there, so that does matter. That lockout, it does work the chest a little different. So close grip bench press is great for that. You guys know these are my 2 big upper body exercises right now. It's a close grip bench and the dead hang pull up, and then I'm throwing in that arm work. And when you think about that, everything's being worked in the upper body pretty effectively between those. People argue about stuff like the side delts, but it's like, if you're not trying to go for a steroid look, you don't have to have massive, enormous roid looking delts, guys. You really don't. And the side delts do get worked on these exercises. Anything that works the front delts as a primary mover and the rear delts as a primary mover does give a pretty good secondary stimulation to those side delts. They're not really intended to be worked directly. That's one reason they respond better to drugs than they do to training. But, I could always do more face pulls and the press if it really became an issue and I felt like I needed to work on that. But I really don't. Skullcrushers, trying to kind of get in my groove on these. I really want to bring them further back behind my head at the bottom, but it feels like they go under my head no matter how I do these, even when I focus on doing that. So it's really weird when you film yourself on these. They just feel totally different. Now, I think maybe if I grip it a little narrower, that might help, because right now I'm gripping them about where I do my bench press. Right, my closed grip bench is a pretty similar grip width. But I am noticing, again, it's still going a bit under my head instead of further back, which is the effect I'm trying to get so that I get that shoulder extension involved, which, again, is a part of what we're trying to do here to get that long head worked and to get the full range of motion of the tricep. Because, again, a lot of these guys do this silly stuff that does hurt their elbows. And it's mainly because of the tension they're putting on it with their isolation movements they're trying to do, and then they're not even a full range of motion exercise. You've got to remember the tricep is involved with movement of the shoulder, not just the elbow. So that's one reason you do need that to get the full function of the muscle. And at the end of the day, we are trying to build muscle here. It's not about refining a little head of the muscle. This is about putting on as much size as possible. That's why even my close to isolation movements, which they aren't really isolation movements. There's shoulder movement involved, not just elbow movement, because both the bicep and the tricep do have functions involving the shoulder joint, also not just the elbow, right? At the end of the day, you've got to remember that. No muscle really works in isolation, and very few muscles in your body, honestly, even are perfectly worked with just a single movement pattern like that. That's why single joint exercises, they might look good in theory, but in the real world, they don't really pan out that well unless you're blasting enough drugs. That's why I'm just not a believer in them, and they definitely don't work for strength and athletic purposes. So if you can always find something that involves more muscle mass, even if it focuses on that muscle, that's better. Just like that with the tricep. That's very much a tricep-focused exercise. But we are trying to involve as much muscle mass as possible, right? That's what we're trying to do there. Pull-ups were pretty good today. They were all easy. Maybe the last one felt a little tough, but that's good. That's what I want. We want that last rep of the last set to be challenging and be close to a grinder and be within 1 rep of failure. And again, trying to get that maximum training stimulus, trying to get the most out of every set so that I can keep the volume of work moderate so that I can recover from it. Everything needs to be pretty heavy, moderate volume, but again, every rep be capable of stimulating growth, other than maybe the higher rep arm stuff. Every exercise, that's the goal right now, to be at an intensity level to where we do stimulate muscle growth starting from rep 1 all the way to the end. And you only get about 5 reps in any given set, even to set to failure, that are capable of stimulating new hypertrophy. And so again, that's kind of why I'm in this 5 rep range, because if I pick a weight that's real close to being a 5 rep max, worst case scenario, we start getting stimulation on the second rep, right? So then if we're doing 3 sets of 5, for example, we're getting a pretty good amount of training stimulus, and it's all being done 3 days a week. And there's a lot of overlap of muscle groups because of the exercise selection here, right? A lot of overlap. There is some long head of the tricep and some chest involved in these dead hang pull-ups, So again, we're getting a lot of overlap here, and that's the idea. Deadlift went good today. The hook grip is getting good. I'm getting good at setting that hook in, and I'm just going to keep slowly ramping this weight up. And yeah, I think it's coming real soon, hopefully this year, to where I'm pulling 500 plus every single workout with the hook grip. Not that that's my max, but the most I pulled so far with the hook was 515. And so we just need to get that hook grip built up, keep toughening up the thumbs, and move it forward, because the goal is eventually pull 600 with a hook grip, right? 600 with the hook grip. And, I get down under 200 pounds with this cutting, and I think that'll be respectable for my age. I think that'll be respectable. I don't think anybody can shit on that. They really can't, if I can get to that point. So I think that's a good, respectable goal for a guy in their 40s, to be 200 or less and pull 600 with no belt with a hook. You can't knock that. That's a good, solid goal to aim for. Then I did my cheat curls, my compound curls, whatever you want to call them. You guys get the idea. And they do seem to be helping. I feel like my arm development's actually improving a little bit in spite of cutting. And we know on that last DEXA scan we saw a little bit of arm growth in spite of the weight loss. So that's a good thing. It's telling me that I'm nowhere near my potential, that my arms have been just overall undertrained if they can grow while cutting. So that's a good thing. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.